Thursday, December 30th. Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. I'm Peter Apple, and I'm joined with Aram Layton. Before we get to our interview with stud left-handed flamethrower for the Miami Marlins, Jesus Luzardo, breaking news. Kyle Seager retired, dude. What? He had 35 bombs last year. What was your reaction when you heard that?
I was shocked. And you know what's great? You know the best part about this, that's a horrible follow-up sentence, but you know the best part about me finding out about it is I actually found out from our Instagram. Like I found out from the Just Baseball Fans Instagram, which in part proves that I have nothing to do with that. But also it was like, wow, like it's serving its purpose. I found out on Instagram before Twitter. Like that's how good our social guys, that's how good Matt is on the Instagram on Just Baseball Fans. Cause I saw it on there and I was like, what? And I was expecting like Kyle Seager signs. And I was like, no way, he signs a minor league deal. He hit 35 jacks last year. And it's like Kyle Seager retires. Look, he got his big contract, like that deal was fat. And he just finished it out. Like you and I were talking about off the air. It seems like, maybe he was just tired of it, family stuff. There's so many things. Maybe his body was wearing down a little bit. But like you said, 35 jacks. I'm surprised. Somebody would have given him a 2-year deal for 25 mil. No problem.
No problem. And first of all, shout out Matt for the Instagram. You guys want to stay up to date on every single thing baseball. Go follow at Just Baseball Fans. And if you want to see some memes, maybe some highlights of Aram and I talking ball, go follow the Just Baseball Show, which is in the link in Just Baseball Fans Instagram. But going back to Kyle Seager, this is a guy, he's been pretty prolific. He's a Gold Glover. He's an all-star. He has 242 career home runs, career 763 OPS. In his final season in 2021, the guy slashed 212, 285, 438 to give him a 723 OPS. Not exactly ideal, but what was ideal was 35 bombs and 101 RBIs in his final season. And he really ended it on a great note with this Mariners team. But if I'm Kyle Seager, I'm like, wait a minute, the Mariners are about to burst. Julio Rodriguez is coming up, all these young pitchers. Could you just stick for a little while longer? There's a possibility for a championship here.
Yeah, I wonder what I wonder what the situation was. Did they offer him a spot? Obviously, they weren't going to let him be the everyday third baseman moving forward, but a bench spot, maybe he wasn't interested in a bench spot. But what I do love is that he played all 11 years of his career with Seattle.
Yeah.
That's a guy that's like got to be in the Seattle Mariners Hall of Fame maybe down the line, right? Like he played 11 years with them and, he hit 20 home runs every single season except for the COVID shortened season in 2020. I mean, and excluding the 53 games he played in his first year, 20 home runs every single year of his career, Peter. 10 straight years, basically. Like that's really impressive. And, he was never superstar level, only made one all-star game. But this guy could really play. He had a great career, all with one team. Just very surprising to see him retire 56 days after his 34th birthday. But, some people don't need much more after that. And clearly, he was fulfilled. And I do love that at least the finish there was, they didn't make the playoffs, but it was probably one of the best stories we've seen in baseball in a little while. And he played a big part in that. So that final game too, when I look back on it, you remember seeing him walk off the field. We thought it was emotional because we thought it was his last game with the Mariners, but it seems like he knew, I guess, in hindsight now that was his last game period. Cause he did look very emotional, but I just figured a decade plus in Seattle, that's where the emotions are. I think it's cause he knew he was walking off the field for the last time.
I think it's a great point. And my first thought is always to question, why would these guys leave? Why did Buster Posey retire after an incredible season? Kyle Seager at 35 bombs, drove in 100 RBIs, and then retires. But it could just be something, family issues, COVID stuff. You never really know. So
and
I think what we're here to do. Too. Yeah, exactly. I think what we're
about that. It's hard to be away from family.
Yeah. And what we could do is just celebrate their career. And Kyle Seager was pretty much a beast for 11 seasons with the Seattle Mariners, and I know fans will miss him dearly. But now we welcome on Jesus Luzardo. Jesus Luzardo, left-handed starting pitcher for the Miami Marlins. Jesus, thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with us. How's the incredibly fun lockout treating you?
Thank you guys for having me. And it's been going well, just kind of spending time here with my family. The holidays pretty important for me, and just, going about my offseason like a regular offseason.
Well, that's kind of the key there, right? You talk about spending time with your family, and for much of your professional career so far, you were on the other side of the country in Oakland.
Yeah.
Now you get traded over to the Marlins and you're back home where you grew up. How awesome was that for you? Obviously, getting traded, it's a whole process, and there's a lot of things that go with it and emotions that go with it. But to get traded to your childhood team and the area where you grew up close to it, how awesome was that for you?
No, it was definitely a blessing for me. Just being able to like come back home, like you said, definitely family is important for me, and just being around my family, being around close friends that haven't been able to get, gotten a chance to really watch me in person since I was all the way over in Oakland. It was cool. It was a lot of fun, and also it kind of helped me out, kind of just being back home and being around people I love. I think it's definitely, like I said, a blessing.
And I'm really curious in your trip around the bigs, because you are just 23, 24 years old, actually 24 years old, but you were drafted by the Nationals in the 3rd round, sent to Oakland in the Doolittle trade. Then you were traded for Starling Marte back to your hometown of Miami. And at least recently, you just had to move around a lot. And with 2020 hit with COVID, you've been between multiple different teams. Has it been more difficult to continue to readjust to new surroundings with COVID happening at such a young age? And how do you develop that routine with that constant changeover?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like you said, moving around, getting traded is never easy. COVID probably didn't make it easier on a lot of the people, got traded this year. But definitely finding the routine is kind of tough. Just being able to, you don't know where you're going, you don't know the new team, the new organization. Like, it kind of takes a little bit for you to get a feel and just kind of feel things out. And as you go along, you start to feel those things out and find a routine. But the first, I don't know, couple of weeks, I would say, is kind of off. It's kind of hard to find that same routine that you had over for me when I was back over in Oakland.
It just seems tough. It seems really hard to continue to readjust, joining new teams, new personnel, new guys in the dugout. That's why I feel like routine is so important in an everyday big leaguer. And I feel like that just messes it up completely. And it's on you kind of to continue to readjust.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think that's something that the best definitely do well. The best are able to do well and able to adjust quickly and, make changes in certain days, that most, maybe younger guys take a little bit longer to adjust to a certain area or routine. But like you said, I think routine is the most important part of a big league, lifestyle. Being able to have this routine locked in that, keeps your body on track and keeps your game on track is huge.
So something about adjusting and, ending up in a new opportunity. The Marlins have done a really good job as of late of developing pitchers, right? And Mel Stoudemire Jr. has been incredible with what he's done with the staff. And the Marlins have some really exciting young arms that I'm sure you can really learn a lot from and just bounce things off of back and forth. Not that Oakland didn't have some interesting arms too. Last time we talked, which was, back on the Locked On MLB Prospects podcast, you're telling me about how you were able to pick things out from a lot of interesting arms and really talented guys in Oakland. Now you meet a bunch of other really talented guys that are younger as well, from, Sandy Alcantara to Trevor Rogers to Pablo Lopez and so many more beyond that. I want to ask you about Mel in a minute too, because I think Mel's done an unbelievable job. But first, just with the pitchers, how has that been getting acclimated to a new group and really being able to be surrounded by such talented young arms?
Definitely coming over, I knew that, they had a great staff before I got over there or over here. And, but they've been really welcoming, ever since I came over. Sandy was right away talking to me, kind of helping me out in certain things. Pablo, same thing. Trevor, ever since I met him, just like the nicest dude, just a killer on the mound though. And, these are guys that it's so easy to just talk to, sit next to them on the bench, have a conversation during the game while we're watching. And that's what I like to do. I like to bounce, like you said, bounce ideas and kind of pick their brains, see what they're doing. Because, clearly, these guys are having a lot of success and we all just enjoy sitting back and watching Sandy go out there and punch out 15 or whatever it is every 5 days. So, watching him do that, it's kind of motivational for all of us. And same thing, every start, one of us, we all want to get better. So I think we feed off each other, definitely.
And the really interesting thing with specifically Trevor and Sandy is that when Trevor first came up, he showed some flashes, but also struggled a little bit. Sandy, when he first came up, struggled, got sent back down, came back up and started to get better. And then I think really hit his stride here, but we saw him progressively get better. I mean, it is a huge jump from AAA, AA up to the big leagues. And Mel Stoudemire has been there along the way, has kind of seen how certain guys have been able to work through that. I think a lot of these guys have a work ethic themselves too, obviously, to help them get there. A lot of people throughout the organization, you ask pitchers, every interview I hear, Mel seems to be the guy that gets a lot of praise for the way he works with pitchers. You came in kind of late in the season and you had to just kind of go out there and pitch, right? I mean, right after the trade, you were almost in the rotation, making a start not that long after. So you didn't have too much time to really work and adjust and do things with Mel, but you did finish the year really, really strong. And I'm excited to get into that start because I watched back some of that and there were some cool things that you did in that outing. Did you get a chance to really work on things, or were you kind of flying by the seat of your pants a little bit? And now you're getting an opportunity maybe to work a little bit more with a really well-regarded pitching coach.
I think we definitely, like, the first couple starts, he kind of just let me go out there and do my thing. Didn't want to get in my head too much. It was just kind of getting to know me, and I was just getting to know him. But definitely as we started going along and the season started going, progressing, he'd give me little tips here and there, little things that, we needed to work on. And, everyone gives him a lot of praise, and he definitely deserves it. I mean, everything that I've heard about him before I came over, ended up being true. Just a great guy, great pitching coach, a lot of help, easy to talk to. So, I'm grateful to be over here.
And just going through all the names of people that you've gotten to meet with, play with, get coached by, the amount of coaches, players, the amount of pitchers are so sick. Can you tell me what separates in terms, like, when we talked about routine, when we talked about a mindset? Because every player in baseball, if you got to make the major leagues, you are incredibly talented to make a professional sport. I'm curious what separates the good from the great when it comes to the routine and when it comes to the mindset, because in my opinion, that's what separates all these guys with immense talent.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you watch certain guys and you watch certain guys go about their business. I mean, I watched Sandy go about his business, for instance, and I would consider, him great, Cy Young talent. So, he just goes about his business every 5 days, every day. He goes hard. He's in the gym or whatever it is that he's doing that day. He's 100% dialed in on it. And, he has it down to a science for him, what works for him. And, when you see a guy go out there and work that hard, then it kind of just, like I said, motivates all of us. You see Trevor going out there, Pablo, Eliezer, me, Edward. So all of us, we kind of follow in those footsteps and see those. We want to be great, like those routines that Sandy's doing. So, that type of stuff, I would say mindset. These guys are out there on the mound and, they could be nice guys, great guys off the field. But once you're on the mound, it's kind of that killer instinct. These guys have it out for whoever's in the box. They don't care. They're just trying to go out there and execute their pitches. So I think that's the main thing that separates, the good from the great.
And just talking about that as well. On the flip side, I know that obviously you never name names, and we wouldn't expect you to name names, but are there certain mindsets or certain routines that you've seen from other players where you're like, that's definitely not working? Maybe for our younger viewers who are still, training every single day and want that correct routine. Is there stuff on the other side where you see, I don't want to do that at all?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that a lot of guys find routines that work for them. Some guys' routines might work better for, some, let's say, this person their routine might work for them, but for me, it won't. And I have to find my routine. So, sometimes I see people doing certain things and, it's just like to each his own. I kind of, that. And, but I know that I follow, every my 5 days, what I need to do. And I know my routine. That's kind of something I stick to. But it definitely varies from player to player, I would say.
An underrated component of the Marlins offseason up until the lockout, of course, they made some moves. They're trying to win now. I think you can see that through the contract to Avi Garcia, going to trade for Jacob Stallings, trading for Joey Wendell. And they're adding pieces, and supposedly, the rumblings are that they're not done. I wanted to pinpoint on the Jacob Stallings acquisition because Stallings was, one of the best, if not the best defensive catcher, Gold Glover last year, did not allow a single pass ball.
That's crazy.
The entire season, which is just absurd. Like, how much does that give you confidence, getting up there on the mound, especially for someone who really likes to throw that curveball in any count, knowing that you can like spike that thing and somehow Jacob Stallings is going to smother it, not to mention the way he can steal strikes for you and everything like that. Is that something you're really excited for heading into next season?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard only great things about him, not only as a catcher, but as a teammate and as a player. So I'm excited to get to know him, meet him, play with him. And like you said, the number, we all know the numbers, behind the plate and how good he is. And that definitely gives a lot of confidence to a pitcher, like you said, a guy who throws a lot of off speed at times. It's something that I take note of when I'm on the mound.
And talking about that breaking ball, I just like to call it a bender, because Fangraphs has it as a slider. Baseball Savant has it as a curveball, but it's 86 miles an hour and it moves 4 feet. How do you classify the pitch? And I'm just curious also about how it's matured throughout your development as a pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot over the last 2 years, I would say.
Yeah.
I consider it a slider. It's always been kind of a slider for me, but it turns into a slurve at times.
Just moves.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, it's matured a lot. It's taken time to develop. At times I lost kind of feel for it. Thankfully at the end of last year, I kind of got the feel for it, and then into the off season kind of kept it going and got a good feel for it again. But yes, definitely, as I changed my mechanics at times, as I got older, trying to fix stuff with my arm health and all this stuff, it's definitely changed shapes. But now it's more consistent. It's more, slurvy-ish. That's why I consider it a slider.
Because we know you got that dirty changeup as well. I'm curious, have you ever thought about just going 4 pitches, curveball and slider, maybe making 2 things out of it, or just you're good with that one because it works? I mean, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job, obviously.
I tried in high school a little bit, and then I kind of banged that idea, and then I tried it again a couple off seasons ago, and then I was working on it and then kind of banged it again. And then this year, early in the year, I thought about it again, and then I kind of stopped. I'm just trying to right now kind of master my 3 pitches. And then once I master those 3, I could definitely, I keep adding, hopefully.
It's also helpful when you throw 100. That usually helps too.
Yeah. I mean, having that in the back pocket usually helps.
When your fastball is 100 and it's in your back pocket, you're looking at a pretty good pitcher.
Well,
I mean, we hopefully keep maturing as a pitcher and definitely keep progressing and adding on, not staying the same 3 pitches for the rest of my career.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was lucky. You asked before we were on air, Peter, about ever crossing paths with Jesus, playing in the same travel organization.
Yeah.
And we played against Douglas. I think it was my junior year in some fall tournament. So I don't think either team was rolling out their best. Thank goodness, because it would have sucked to have faced mid 90s from the left side, and as I have to switch around to the right side where I hate velo, it would have been. So yeah, having that in your back pocket is quite nice. And the back pocket thing is funny because I was watching your last start, and you dealt in that last start against the Nationals. Or against the Phillies, excuse me. I think Bryce Harper, National still all the time. I'm never going to shake that one. But against the Phillies, you carved them up 6 innings, 11 Ks. But something that really stood out to me was you mentioned the feel for the curveball. You were throwing that thing in any count, and you tripled up on it. I think you threw it 3 in a row to Freddie Galvis, and the poor guy struck out on 3 pitches. You were pitching backwards, then you were going to the fastball, blowing it by guys. What was the difference in that start? Was it really just the feel for the curveball that kind of set the baseline? Because it just seemed like nobody knew what was coming, and you had supreme confidence in that curveball.
Yeah, I would say that, going into the game, I had a great feel for the breaking ball and the fastball. My arm felt really good that day. Kind of just felt relaxed going last start of the year. But at the same time, me and Ajax were on the same page. We were on the same page the whole time. I don't even think I shook once. It was just kind of, whatever sign he was giving me, I had a lot of confidence in him, and we were on the same page. He was taking a great sequence, which was something that I was working on towards the end of the year. And, we were as a whole. So being able to kind of get that last start under my belt and have that, that rhythm that we're, like you said, we were just kind of going in a groove and then carving it up. So it was something good to end on.
And you got a ton of swings and misses on that fastball in that outing. We've seen you rack up the swings and misses in bunches on the heater. And then at times it doesn't quite get that whiff rate as much. What's the kind of defining characteristic that, you see between starts where the fastball plays and you're getting tons of whiffs, and other times maybe it's not as effective?
Honestly, in my mind, I would say, maybe it is something mechanically that changes subconsciously. But for me, I think it's my mentality. I think that, when I'm really confident in it, when I really just say, I'm letting it go, it feels great today. I'm letting it eat. That's when it's at its best. That's when I, get it to the top of the zone, get those swings and misses. The times that you're kind of tentative and you're like, I don't really know where this one's going at times, which is, not the right mindset you want to have. But at times it gets to that mindset when you're in that kind of like that slump, I guess you could say. But once you get out of that and once you're that free and easy, relaxed mindset, I'm going and getting it. It was way better, way easier, way more free.
Just taking you back to high school really quick, because me personally, I broke my medial epicondyle in my elbow pitching my freshman year. And I felt that it was a lot to do with overuse, pitching as an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old. I'm just curious because you obviously had Tommy John as an 18-year-old, but you were still looked very highly on, especially by the Nationals because they drafted you. I'm just curious, do you ever point to something in your childhood, something that maybe led to that injury? Or is it possible that the overuse isn't that big of a deal? I'm just curious to your perspective on elbow injuries, on treating them in your youth and then moving forward and how that's going to relate.
Yeah, I mean, I can't specify one specific moment or that, time that I think that might have caused my elbow injury at a younger age. But I do think that kids right now are, pitching at a young age and becoming POs at a young age and, trying to show it off all the time. I think that there's definitely room for improvement in that sense of, having kids kind of dial it back until they get a little bit older. But in my sense, I would say I definitely pitched a lot when I was young, but I don't have a certain instance that I could say that, it was this that caused it.
Well, speaking of when we were kids, obviously you grew up playing down here. Peter grew up in California. It's year round. Weather's always warm and you don't really take much of a break. And that also plays a big part in it. But growing up in South Florida, going to Marlins games at Joe Robbie or Pro Player, whatever the 35 names it had through the years. I mean, those were some of my favorite memories, even though it was kind of a dump. I just have a lot of fun memories there. I'm sure you went to a ton of games. I saw some pictures that you put up when you went over to the Marlins from, you and your father at the game as a kid. And that's some of the memories I have as well. Who did you kind of grow up loving on the Fish through the years? Because there were some fun teams when we were young, even though they didn't do too much. There were some fun players out there. Who did you kind of idolize growing up with the Fish?
For me, definitely my first guy ever was Juan Pierre. That's why number 9. For me, like number 9 was always big and still to this day is big. And it was always because Juan Pierre was my favorite player growing up. And then, I mean, pitching wise, obviously D-Train was huge for me. Josh Beckett, Josh Johnson in his moment. Yeah. It was, and then we had a lot of position players come through, obviously Miggy and all them. But for me, those were my guys at the time.
And to take it a step further, Miggy's still in the big leagues now, which is crazy. But who was the player? And maybe it was Miggy at crossing paths at some point, but who was the player that when you got to the big leagues or even maybe in pro ball that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm, kind of a peer, with this guy, like we're in the same area, we're in the same domain now, that kind of blew your mind?
For me, it was definitely, I would say Jose Altuve, just because really? I have a story that it was a funny story. I was 18 years old. I was rehabbing. We just moved down to West Palm, the new complex, when I was with the Nats. And then I went to go eat Chipotle with like 2 of my buddies that were from Venezuela. And we were sitting down. I had my Venezuela World Baseball Classic hat on and some random Chipotle in West Palm Beach. And Jose Altuve walks in. He kind of notices my hat. We didn't say anything. He pays for his food. And he's like, you guys mind if I sit here? Sits down with us. These were 3 random kids that he'd never met. And we had a conversation for like 20, 30 minutes. We took a picture. And I still actually have it up on my Instagram. I think it was like one of my first Instagrams.
That's awesome.
So then I get up to the big leagues. I debut against the Astros. And the first thing, he runs over to me, like says, we'll tell you they're hitting BP. He comes over, he says, welcome. It's good to see you. And he's like, you remember that time, we met in like 2017. And we took a picture outside that Chipotle. And I was like, I was kind of taken back that he remembered that. Because I was a random kid at the time. So, I have a lot of respect for him.
And
pretty awesome story.
That is so cool. Are you kidding me? What did Altuve get from Chipotle? Do you remember?
I have no idea.
Like a super order?
Of course, that's where your mind goes. Dude. You're just thinking about his order.
I wonder if it's like insanely good. It gives him superpowers. I mean, he's an incredible player.
Yeah, he's a freak.
But I've heard you talk about the influence of another Venezuelan player, Yasmero Petit, in multiple interviews, who has been just such a solid pitcher in the league since 2006. But he's a guy who's never had an average fastball of over 90 miles an hour in a league that values high velocity so much. So I'm really curious to what he's meant to you for your development as a pitcher and what he's kind of taught you in the art of pitching, if you could share that.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's taught me a lot in the art of pitching, in terms of sequencing, in terms of, how to read a hitter. And just watching him work, I enjoy watching him work. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He's a veteran. You expect him to kind of like go in there, taking it easy. And first day of spring training, he's out there. He runs like 4 miles on the treadmill almost every day. So, I mean, it's the most incredible thing. He's always first one in the gym, staying out there, throwing flat grounds, really working on his craft. So just being able to watch him, he's a guy that leads by example. He's not a big talker, but every time he would open his mouth, we'd all listen. So when he'd kind of pull me to the side and kind of talk to me about pitching, whatever it was, even stuff that wasn't pitching, when I was out in the bullpen, we would just talk about whatever it was, life. And, it's a guy that I have a lot of respect for. And, he was just a big help to me. He kind of just took me under his wing at times. So I a lot of appreciation for him.
Are there any other pitchers across the way that maybe aren't the stars? Like we've talked about Sandy Alcantara and Trevor Rogers, but maybe some other guys that have had a big influence on you that maybe are a little bit under the radar.
Yeah. I mean, Sean Manaea, he's not really.
He deals.
Yeah, nasty, but he was a big influence for me. He was one of my best friends when I was over there with the A's. He's a veteran presence. Same thing, kind of took me under his wing, and just was a lot of help at times. In times of when I was struggling or when I was doing well. He was just so easy to bounce. So easy to talk to and bounce ideas off of. Him, Chris Bassett, obviously, and then I had a lot of good friends. Still haven't come up that were in AAA, but they were older than me, guys that went through senior science in college that had been through experiences I hadn't been through. Parker Dunshee, Brian Howard over in the Oakland A's organization. So those are guys that really kind of helped me come up. And then once I was up, the Manaea, the Bassett's, the Petits would help me out.
Taking the momentum from the end of last season and now rolling into next year, you mentioned you're working hard. Pretty much just treating it like a normal off season, despite, some of the things that are going on and assuming that we're going to start on time, kind of like we all are hoping and kind of just planning for. What are your big focuses on the mound when you're throwing your bullpen, when you're working towards next season to really make sure that you can, keep taking it to the next level and pitch to the best of your abilities?
Yeah, I mean, right now, definitely just commanding that fastball, just dialing it in, having full control over it and having full control over my body and, the mechanics and where I'm at in my delivery at all times and being able to make adjustments, one pitch adjustments, just doing a lot of also like studying outside of pitching mechanics and pitching, in terms of just like how to read hitters, where to locate my stuff and how my stuff plays best for me. All these things that kind of go into pitching that most people don't think about.
And in terms of the Marlins starting rotation, this is also something I'm curious about because you're an athlete, like you're a competitive person, one of the most competitive people on the planet. That's how you get to where you are. But this rotation is Sandy Alcantara, Trevor Rogers, Pablo Lopez, Eliezer Hernandez, Edward Cabrera, and they have other guys like, Nick Neidert and Jake Eder and Max Meyer. They just have a ton of arms and you're right in the middle of that. How do you view the competition moving forward in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's honestly healthy. I think it's healthy for all of us. I think we all like that competitive edge and have to fight for, earn for a spot. I think that just makes it that much better for all of us and, being able to go out there and, we're kind of all friends and we're kind of all competing for the same stuff, but we kind of push each other to be better, I would say. So, I mean, I'm excited for it. Definitely get going.
It's also definitely a good thing. I mean, you guys are just loaded on the pitching staff side. It's definitely not a bad thing at all.
Never a bad thing. We have plenty of arms. So yeah, it's real good. And a lot of good guys, we bounce a lot of ideas off each other just because, watching all these guys, they're all so good and they all do different things. So it's kind of just easy to pick different guys' brains and hear different mentalities from different guys.
So talking about the pitching staff, but on a side that's much less important, hitting, you go from the AL to the NL and you had to swing the bat a little bit. I think your first at bat, you actually didn't pull the trigger. I think you didn't swing. I don't think.
Yeah, I did.
I remember, I think I missed the AB. I was watching you on the bump and then I went to the bathroom. I see Kyle Carter, who's one of our mutual friends, throw a story up, I think, of you hitting and just totally making fun of you for not pulling the trigger once. Was that I'm not going to swing because I don't want to strain a muscle because I haven't used these muscles, or were you just not seeing the ball in that at bat?
I had one at bat and it was in Arizona, the second week of the year. And I was like, I haven't swung a bat. I'm not swinging anymore. I'm just going to get up there and statue. And then once the second AB I got up there, I was like, all right, I'm going to take a little swing. And then after that, I got a little more comfortable.
Well, Sandy Alcantara. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Aram.
Sandy Alcantara is one of the worst hitting pitchers in all of baseball. He also hit one 110 off of DeGrom, I think, but he's one of the worst hitting pitchers in baseball. Pablo Lopez rakes. Where do you feel like you stack up with some of those guys now that you've gotten the chance to take some BP?
I can't talk too much smack because I didn't get a hit this year, but I give Sandy such a hard time and during BP. So I got to say I'm better than Sandy at hitting. And then after that, I'll probably the worst. Have you
had the opportunity to, because I know you haven't had that many at bats, but maybe in batting practice, if you ever had that opportunity, are there some pitchers that you face that are just downright disgusting?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have. I faced Morton. I luckily got a walk off him, somehow battled my way through that. But Morton was, his stuff was just nasty, moving all over the place. So that was definitely uncomfortable.
That was Pitching Ninja's pitch of the year, that curveball that he had. Just absolutely diced up some guy.
Yeah, it's hard. Now I understand. Now I get up there and I see how, it's hard. It's hard to hit up there.
Well, speaking for it being hard to hit, there's guys that really struggle to hit against you. And I kind of wanted to ask a trivia question here because I'm curious if you know who has the lowest batting average against you with at least 8 at-bats.
I don't want to say the wrong name, so I'm going to say I don't know.
It's Carlos Correa. He's 1 for 8 off of you with 4 Ks.
Right.
Pretty solid.
That's funny. That's a good stat. Honestly, I was going to take that guess, but I didn't want to be wrong. And then, that's a bad look.
Yeah, obviously. And then on the flip side, though, who do you think has your number the best? That one I feel like is easier to remember because I talked to Niner about this. Obviously, Jeff Conine, I host a podcast with him, and Outside the Box with Jeff Conine, he can remember back from 30 years ago, the guy that just carved him the hell up. He doesn't forget it. So I feel like you can kind of remember that on the mound a little bit.
Oh yeah, I can remember. I don't remember whose number I have, but I can remember who has my. Yuli Gurriel probably has my number the most. If that has to be number 1.
Yeah.
I would say I would say those are the 2 guys that gave me struggles last year.
I don't mean to bag on you, but we did look up Jesus Luzardo versus some hitter stats, and Yuli Gurriel is 5 for 7 with 3 bombs off you. But he's a good pitcher. He's a pretty good hitter. He won a batting title, and he also kills lefties, so it's tough.
That sounds exactly right. That's what I figured the numbers were.
Who's a guy that maybe not gives you the most trouble in terms of statistics, but was there kind of a come to see moment in the MLB where you're like, oh, that's Mike Trout? Or that's Miguel Cabrera? Or was there any player where you were on the mound and your eyes opened a little bit more and you're like, oh my God, it's really him?
Yeah, for me, it was probably Mike Trout. I didn't get to face him in season, but I faced him in spring training. That was for me my first time I was pitching in big league camp, and I got up there and faced Mike Trout. I was like, wow, this is really Mike Trout. But then once I got called up, I didn't have any of those wow moments just because I felt in my head, at that point it was kind of the same level. I couldn't, throw to a last name. I was more thrown to a hitter at the time. That's the way I kind of put it in my head. But definitely that spring training outing that I faced Mike Trout kind of blew my mind for a second.
Absolutely. Because you can't have that mindset going up like you're like a fanboy or anything. It has to be like, I'm just going to beat down this hitter, whoever it is. And I trust in my stuff, trust in that fastball. So that's a good mindset to have, obviously, that you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So one of your former high school teammates, and I know a good buddy of yours, also broke into the big leagues last year, Colton Welker, and played with you at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, got to make his debut over with the Rockies. How cool was that to see some of your, a high school teammate now break into the big leagues, and how much do you guys still stay in touch?
No, it was awesome. Awesome to see Colton, break into the big leagues. I feel like we all kind of knew that growing up. Everyone who knew him growing up and watching him play knew that he just had it in. Just being able to watch that, appreciate that, even though, obviously I didn't see him in throughout the year, but it was great to see him. We catch up when we get back home. I see him probably a good bit, probably once every week, or at least once every week. So we definitely see each other, keep up, and we're still good friends. So I'm excited to face him next year.
Yeah, I played a lot, at least a few tournaments with him. I think probably when we were 15 years old, before we made the elite squad jump. And that kid made hitting look so easy. Like, that's just the best way I could put it. Like, he just hit everything. And that was one of those guys, I think we were in like 8th grade playing travel ball. And I was like, that guy's just going to be good. Like, he'll be fine. Like, there's some guys that just slow the game down.
I'm also really excited because as we move into 2022, as you have bounced around, I know that you're probably chomping at the bit, especially with this lockout. What are you most excited for looking forward to 2022? Maybe something in your development, maybe a mindset change, anything like that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get going. I'm excited definitely for a mindset change, kind of just feel like leave last year in the past. Obviously picked up a lot of things that I needed to work on and working on throughout the offseason. But now I'm, feeling good again, and just kind of have that mindset of, new year, and then, just attack again.
And one of the last questions I just wanted to ask you too is looking at this Marlins team, you obviously played for a couple playoff teams, and that's the crazy part about, I think, the mindset is you kind of got thrown into it. Yeah. You had to have that killer instinct because you were pitching postseason innings for Oakland back-to-back years, if I'm not mistaken. So, you've seen what it takes to be a postseason team, and how far off do you think this Marlins team is after, it was a frustrating year last year, but there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. They're retooled this year. Everybody's, getting healthy. The pitching staff is healthy, and they added offensive pieces as well. How far off do you think this team is, given that you've kind of already been a part of a playoff team before?
Yeah, I really don't think they're far off, or I don't think we're far off at all. I know that we're in a good division. The Mets obviously added, the Braves are obviously really good. And, the rest of the division is going to be tough, but I think that we're not far off. Like you said, I think our pitching's great. I think the clubhouse is great. We added some guys, and I think, the young guys that took their bumps last year are going to come up and going to succeed this year. And, I they learned a lot, and including my son. I think that we had a lot of growing pains last year, even in my short time there. But I think a lot of guys grew, me being one of them. And I think that the clubhouse is a big part of a winning team. And this clubhouse, ever since I came over, was amazing. So, like I said, I don't think we're far off at all.
And that's also something I'm curious. What separates maybe this clubhouse versus others? Because you've been, obviously down in the minor leagues at the Oakland A's and the Washington Nationals for a bit. What do you think separates this Marlins clubhouse from other teams?
Every team, I guess, is different, and the way each team goes about it is different. But this one's just a lot of fun. Obviously a lot of young guys, a lot of I don't know how to explain it. It's just a lot of fun. We just we keep it light. We know how to have not to be serious and know how to work hard. A lot of guys like to work hard, a lot of strong work ethics, but at the same time, we keep it fun. Like I said, young team mixed with an older group as well. So we kind of have that great balance between both.
And who's one player that you think could really burst onto the scene next year, that you really think could break out and have a big year, that doesn't maybe get enough attention or maybe people are sleeping on a little bit for next season outside of yourself? Because when I shot you the text to bring you on the show, I told you, we talked about breakout pitchers for next year.
You're on it.
And you were one of them. And that's part of the reason why I was like, oh, we got to follow up with having Zeus on the show right after that, which was awesome. But, outside of yourself, who's a breakout candidate for you think, or not even breakout, but someone you think maybe isn't getting enough attention that you think could really burst onto the scene next year?
I think my guy, Anthony, is going to be a stud next year. I watched him pitch, and he's got that dog in him, and he's got disgusting stuff. And he's got it when he's out there in the 8th inning. We all have the confidence, and he has the confidence in himself. So I think Anthony Bender is going to be a big name to kind of break out.
Anthony Bender is pretty nasty. Is there maybe someone on offense that you've been seeing just rake in the cages where you're like, I don't want to face him if I was on another team?
I haven't seen many of the guys in the offseason, but I think Jesus Sanchez is going to have a breakout year as well. I think that he absolutely bang. So, hopefully he keeps that going like he did at the end of last year.
Awesome, man. Yeah, well, we really appreciate the time, and this is a great conversation. And I think we'll be right on the breakout pitchers list. We had you there for a reason because you throw gas and your off speed's great and you got a good head on your shoulder. So we're excited to watch you in 2022.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. Really excited for next year. Big things coming.
Thank you, man.
That was awesome. We just interviewed a major league player and a really good one at that, a guy who throws 100 miles an hour and he's got an absolute bender. I did want to ask the question too about the Fangraphs versus Baseball Savant, that they can't even track his off speed because it's just that nasty. They don't even know what to call it.
They don't know what it is. It's like, it's a mystery curveball. Or I guess it's a mystery breaking ball. But the important thing is, top 10 in whiff rate among all breaking balls in all of baseball last year. So the pitch plays. I'm glad that he kind of said it's more of like a slurvy, more of a slider, or more. He kind of says more of like a slurvy pitch, right? So that's really, really interesting. Just kind of seeing how pitchers really feel with their arsenal, and it was a pitch that was huge for him as he started to see success at the end of the year. And then, like you said in the interview, when you throw 97 to 100. It's a lot easier to fall back on those kinds of pitches, but such a nice dude, grinder. And he's 24. He feels like he's one of those guys that feels like he's been around forever because he was such a high profile prospect at such a young age. And now he's been part of 2 massive deals, as you mentioned in the episode. Sean Doolittle as part of that World Series run for the Nats. So Jesus should get a ring for that. And then also traded straight up for Starling Marte, who was one of the best players in baseball last year. This guy's been a part of a couple major deals. He's been a top prospect for a long time. It's easy to forget that he's 24. There's prospects that are 25 that we're still ranking in a top 100 list. This is a young dude.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to see how he pitches because I think he definitely will slot into this rotation somewhere, whether it be at the 4. I feel like this solidified 3 with Pablo, Sandy, and Trevor, but he's going to fight for one of those last remaining spots in the rotation. How do you see this Marlins rotation stacking up when we look at 2022? Because I don't think there's a wrong answer there. You have so many options. And even in the TikTok live, we're saying this might be a top 5 starting rotation. So anyone you leave off doesn't mean necessarily they're a bad pitcher because they're going to be used heavily. I wonder if they even go 6 deep.
It's crazy because, I'm instantly thinking, I package a pitcher and go do something else. But the Marlins somehow ended up with a 3-man rotation last year because they had so many injuries. So, I think it's good to have that starting pitching depth, but I think that they kind of have that already. I think the upside of Luzardo, right? If he puts it together next year, the way we know he can, and the way he knows he can, the way that we saw Trevor Rogers really connect after a shaky-ish rookie year and then really put it together. If Jesus is even just close to what he is capable of, that's the Marlins' 4th starter, a guy who was, per Fangraphs, last time he was ranked before graduating, number 5 prospect in baseball. That guy's still there. And he still has a lot of the things that he had. And now he's in an organization that develops pitching as well as anybody in baseball. They don't do a lot of other things very well, but they do that. This is a very exciting opportunity. And I just love the idea. And I was glad we were able to ask him about it, of him just being surrounded by a bunch of young guys who had similar struggles. Trevor had command issues. Sandy had command issues, and both of them have electric stuff. with good off speed that they just couldn't quite harness. And I think we're going to see Jesus start to do that. And if he does that, I mean, dude, this rotation, it's ridiculous. Then you're figuring out who the 5 is between Sixto Sanchez, Eliezer Hernandez, Edward Cabrera. Like, I really think that they're going to deal a couple of these guys, because even if they do, they still have extra pitching depth. So it's going to be really interesting to see on the other side of the lockout.
On the outside looking in, me personally, I think I would start with Jesus Luzardo and Edward Cabrera in that rotation. Sixto's got to prove. Sixto Sanchez has got to prove that he can make this rotation. I'm not sliding him in over guys who have proved it already. No, I know Edward Cabrera, as soon as he came up, he didn't have that much success, but we see the potential. I mean, first of all, the greatest MLB The Show pitcher ever. And that matters because that stuff is that electric. So
Derek Jeter cares about that too.
And he does. I mean, of course, Derek Jeter cares about that. He's not looking at his DRS. He's looking at MLB The Show, right?
Definitely not the DRS. I think he probably puts more stock into his MLB The Show ratings than any player's like DRS. Like, his defensive rating is 86 on MLB The Show. That's more important than DRS.
I wonder, position player. Do we know who makes those ratings in MLB The Show? Like, do we?
No, there's no like Ronnie 2K. There's no
that's what I'm thinking.
There's no like Michael MLB. Like, that's not a thing. But yeah, that is pretty funny. We should. If
how can we do it?
Yeah, I'm down. John Means 99.
He's earned it. 3.54 ERA. I'm not going to take any more John Means slander here. He was a good pitcher.
Yeah, he was. It's just John Means. It's like an auto-generated name. And but no, honestly, if this lockout gets dragged out enough, bro, we might have to just start going into like MLB The Show rating.
No, but what's exciting is that a lot of people have really loved when we're playing general manager for these teams. So the next team up on Friday, you will see us finally fill out the ballot. We're going to talk about Barry Bonds, Kurt Schilling, and the remaining guys. And then we're officially filling out our ballot. And then as we break into next week and the weeks moving forward, we're going to start playing GM with every single team. We're going to say who we'd buy, maybe some trades that we'd make, some movements within their own team. For example, on yesterday's Twins episode, we talked about possibly moving Mitch Garver over to first base, moving Ryan Jeffers to catcher, and saying goodbye to Miguel Sano slightly. That's just one of the moves that we've made. And I'm excited to talk about the St. Louis Cardinals next week as their first. But you can check out all the stuff about the Twins on justbaseball.com. You can find the article about Jesus Luzardo as well as our breakout pitchers on justbaseball.com. Anything else before we say adieu for Friday?
No, man, just sick week content-wise. We got a lot more interviews in the pipeline across the board. I mentioned it in the last episode, but I'm going to be interviewing Boog Shambi in the next couple of days with Jeff Conine on Outside the Box. And, we've got some exciting interviews coming up when I launch the Prospect Show in the next week. And then we've got some interviews on the Just Baseball Show too. Like we're going in every angle right here, and a lot of fun content as we continue to just kind of churn out these GM kind of episodes that people seem to really like. And then I love how we can follow it up with the system write-up. And I still have the Cardinal system to write up, so it works out really well.
And something that we're going to continue to talk about as well, in the link in the episode description, we are still selling these t-shirts, #BiggerThanBaseball. And we are donating all proceeds from that shirt to local charities down there in Kentucky and the surrounding states in the South who were affected by the tornadoes and other weather storms that devastated a lot of those areas. So make sure that before you get your Just Baseball hat, before you get your Just Baseball merch, check out that shirt, because we are donating all proceeds, like I said, to charities down there while also matching $500. And that link to that shirt will be in our episode description. You could also find it on our merch store if you search Just Baseball merch on Shopify, or you could find it on our website or on our Instagram, again, at Just Baseball Fans and at Just Baseball Show. Anything else?
I couldn't top that. I had nothing else after that. Like, yeah, do that. Definitely do that. But yeah, we're really proud of that. I know we talked about it last time. It's been nice to see a lot of it sell already, and a lot of people supporting the cause. And I'm glad that we can do anything that we can. And I really hope you enjoyed this interview with Luzardo, because we're going to be doing a lot more, interviews with current players, former players, and stuff like that moving forward. Just sprinkling those in here and there. So we kind of come at you from all angles on the Just Baseball Show, and We're just getting started, as I told you in that solo episode I did that I secretly did without telling you so that you wouldn't come on and not just rest for like a minute. So
I don't like resting.
No,
when
Peter doesn't sleep. He just lays down with his eyes open and says, I'm good.
You know that quote from The Big Short, I'm only happy when I'm unhappy. that's kind of how I feel sometimes with all the rest. But subscribe to our YouTube. You could watch us on YouTube as well. Aram's going to be doing a lot of swing breakdowns. We're putting more stuff on our YouTube. And with that, thank you, everybody.